Hello lovely sewing friends, I hope you guys are doing well. So, a little bit of an update on my sewing projects. As you may recall, last week I was working on a skirt, right? So we are now a week into the skirt and I'm loving it. I did not toile this skirt, and one of the things I always say to myself is, always do a toile. Now, for those of you who are new here and don't know what a toile is basically a mock-up of what you're sewing in your fabric. So it's like a draft, right? And it's usually done with a really inexpensive fabric like a cotton or a calico, or like some scrap fabric that you have lying around. And basically this helps you iron out any of the fit details or style details. For example, like if you're making a dress and you're like, oh, I actually would like it longer, then you've not cut it into your final fabric. You've got it in the cheaper fabric, and you can go, okay, I want it 5 centimeters longer, and then you can add a bit of length to it. So what that essentially does is like iron out all the details, then you make your final adjustments, and then you cut it out in your final fabric. So I did not do that. I've been sewing for 20 plus years. I have a degree in sewing and fashion design and pattern making and sustainable fashion. I did not do that, right? And for once in my life, it worked out, right? There are some garments that I've done 17. I did 17 toiles for this jacket lining because the fabric is a Liberty silk and it costs like $58 a meter. It was also dead stock fabric, and it was also very, very beautiful. So, and I only had a certain amount of fabric. So this, I had to do a toile, 17, versus some other garments like this one. This one I didn't do a toile in, and it turned out pretty good. But that again was also because I had actually made the pattern up several times, and I'd ironed out all the details and all the little bits and bobs in previous mock-ups, that this one turned out perfectly. So, all that to say, always do a toile. Secondly, I'll tell you about the fabric I chose for this. So first of all, I've just got some scraps here. So I originally bought this, I think it's like a cotton drill. I originally bought this cotton drill when I was out looking for fabric for something completely different. I found this, I love this color, I love this texture and this weight. So I was like, I love it. I know I'm going to wear this. And that's another thing. It's kind of like going to the supermarket when you're hungry, right? If you're going specifically to look for a certain type of fabric, it's never going to work out. You just go in there with an open mind and you just look at what you like and then get what you like. Over the past 10 or so years, I have kind of really honed in on my skill of picking out the fabrics that I love and I will wear. So whenever I see like a check fabric that I love, always get it. Do I have examples here? No, I do not. But I digress. So when I saw this fabric, I was like, yeah, absolutely love that. It's Chartreuse. I already have that color in my wardrobe, so it's really easy to pair with things. I have it in my home decor, definitely my fabric. So I got, I think 1.5 meters or maybe 2 meters. I got 1.5 meters because I was going to make pants. But I made up the pants in a different fabric and they looked way better as shorts, and I wore them more as shorts. And so I was like, ugh. And I kind of forgot about this fabric, if I'm honest. Then I had a vision of what kind of skirt I wanted to make, and it just so happens that I instantly remembered this fabric. And so then I was like, okay, pedal to the metal, like let's get this going, because what I have figured out about myself is that if I leave a sewing project on my mind for too long, I never do it. Whilst the excitement is there and the inspiration is there, I got to do it then and there. So all that to say, I made up my skirt. It's not finished yet. I've still got to do a bit of sewing on it, but I'll get into that. So I cut out the fabric like 2 or 3 days ago. And what I've been doing is I've been working on it whilst also filming it for like reels and, you know, little films and tutorials and everything. But I figured out, I was like, oh gosh, this is actually really difficult, and I'm actually not enjoying sewing this skirt because I'm thinking about camera angles and thinking about all this kind of stuff. It's too difficult. So what I did is I cut out the fabric, and I didn't have enough to do the skirt ideally how I would like, so I've made some changes to it. Another reason why you should always do a toile, because then you know exactly how much fabric you need, therefore you don't have to go back to the fabric shop and get more fabric like I did and have the risk of it not being there. So I was like, look, this isn't working. So what I ended up doing is I'm sewing the skirt on my own time, doing it exactly how and when I want. And then I'm gonna go back and refilm parts of it, but with some extra fabric that I went and bought yesterday. So I bought this fabric about like 3 months ago. And then I went back to the fabric shop and I'm like, please, please, please let it still be there. And I got an extra 1/2 meter. So I'll be able to show you guys the full process of all the little sewing techniques, exactly how I want them presented to you guys. Anyway, I'll show you the skirt. I'm so excited. So this is the skirt. She is a beautiful. Okay, I'll obviously move you guys in a second, but like what this basically is a high-waisted, oh my God, I've got to tell you about the waistband as well. Let me tell you about the waistband. But basically you can see it's kind of like, it's like all in one panel like that, and then it wraps around. So I'm just going to move you over here. Hello. So this is the skirt. Also, please notice we all in red today. I made this top, made the little cherry on top, and then these are Koto shorts. Perfect pairing. Anyway, so this is the skirt. It's the waistband, and I'll get into all the details with you in a minute, but I'll show you like the look of it. Right? And yes, it does have pockets. So it's like that, right? So it's like a big billowy kind of skirt. Let me just move you around. You're getting all angles of my apartment today, right? And then I want to show you like the full length of it. I'll pop you down here for a second. Oh gosh. You get the idea, right? And then pockets. And so it's got this slit at the front, but I'll show you what's going to happen with that in a minute. But you can kind of get the whole like, it's very swishy. So, as I was saying, that's kind of like the look we're going for. Now, this video, I want to talk to you guys about the things that I wish I did differently. Hence why a toile is so important. Because a toile not only sorts out like all the fit issues, but it also sorts out the techniques and the order in which you do those techniques, so you're not doubling back on yourself or unpicking, God forbid. So, I love this skirt. Also, I'll quickly show you. I got these gorgeous buttons. These little, hey look, there's you. So these are the buttons that I'm going to have going down. I'm going to have one there. So I think I've got 5 in total, and then they're just going to go down the front placket. And I'm also going to have snaps. I'm going to call them my sneaky snaps, because I'll show you why in a minute. Anyway, back to our regular programming. So the things I wish I had done different. If I was to make this skirt again, these are the things I would have done differently. First of all, I would have done a toile and measured out exactly how much fabric I needed. Speaking of waistband, I did a toile for the waistband, and I'll tell you exactly why in a minute. But I did not have enough fabric to do this skirt exactly how I wanted to. So here are the pockets. I like for the pockets to obviously be in the same fabric as the skirt, but I had to go through my stash to find some lining fabric because I didn't have enough fabric. I was literally about 20 centimeters short. And if I had known that, also, I cut into my fabric incorrectly and then had to sew it all back together. So the pockets essentially were a write-off. And so I had to, I would have preferred to have done the pockets again. And yes, I can do them again with that new fabric that I have over there, but then again, like, I don't want to waste this. And also I wish I had enough fabric, because I wanted to make a will with the waist free wale, because I want to make wales that correspond to every sewing project I have. But thankfully, now that I have that extra fabric, I can do that, but I wish I had done the pockets differently in this. Also, speaking of the pockets, I wish I had overlocked the lining, which is this piece, and the exterior, I'm just gonna call it the exterior, together, because otherwise I get like these little flat, like, I don't like it how they're separated. And I also think overlocking looks a lot neater when it's 2 layers of fabric, not 2 single layers of fabric. But then that goes back to the techniques I used in the order in which I did it, which is something that I would have found out if I had done a toile. Then, the one thing I'm really proud about with, okay, very quickly while we talk about toiles, because I didn't do a toile, I thought this was a perfect opportunity to use one of these Kylie and the Machine labels. How cool is that? No Toile Club. So I think there's very few projects I ever could have used that on, and this was one of them, so I decided to use it on this one. So, a little fun detail there. Also another thing with this project, so the waistband, right? So, you know how waistbands are normally straight, right? What I did, because I have an hourglass figure, my waist is smaller, and also it, like, the way I have clothes sit on me and the way I want this styled, because I envision this skirt being paired with a merino high neck turtleneck and cowboy boots. So the top that I'm going to be wearing with this is going to be quite body fitting, curve fitting, you know the word I'm looking for. So I don't want a lot of bulk around my waist. Therefore, I needed the waistband on this to be curved. So what I did, so a waistband is normally straight. And then what I did, I'm actually gonna get a pattern piece, I should fit this. So I did make the pattern for this, hence why. And also, this is another thing. I wish the waistband I had to cut up into 2 separate pieces, because again, I didn't have enough fabric. So I wish I had done that differently. But a waistband is normally straight. So instead, what I did with my pattern is I cut into the top and then curved it so that when it sits on my waist, the top part is cinched in, and then the bottom is nice and flat on me. So it kind of, it's more custom to my figure. In saying that, what that ends up happening with the pattern piece is that it goes from a straight line to this massive curve, essentially. And then what that entails is that you take up, instead of it being like, 5 centimeters, because also I lined you gotta have 2 waistbands. So that's the exterior and then that's the interior. So instead of it being like a fold with a straight, because you would have your waistband and then you would double the width so that you can fold it over like that, you're talking about 20 centimeters. But if I did this exactly how the best level possible, it would probably take like 40, 50 centimeters of fabric compared to 20. So that's why I had to kind of chop up the waistband and kind of shimmy it. And also I didn't do these on grain, because also I fused the waistband as well. So waistband is a whole separate thing. But I'm very glad that I did it, because otherwise with my figure, the waistband would kind of sit out. It would kind of be like that, and my body kind of goes like that. So there would be a lot of gaping at the sides, and I just didn't like that. So I decided to curve the waistband. Not so good for fabric, but good how it looks eventually. So that was that. Another thing was when it came to doing the gathering, right? I really liked how I did my gathering, so let's just, let's notice that. Oh no, okay, yeah, gathering. So I did a method of gathering. I'll flip this around, and you can obviously there's a lot. So I did a method of gathering called the train tracks method, right? And what that involves is sewing 2 parallel lines of basting stitch, and basting stitch is the highest stitch length on your sewing machine. Left 2 really long tails, so 2 parallel lines, one at 0.5, one at 1.5, gathered everything in, and then sewed in between those 2 lines my regular stitch length to secure it to the waistband. That I really liked. However, what I noticed is that when it came to joining it to the waistband, there are like these patches where, because there's bulk at the seam allowance, it didn't gather up here as well. So that's something I kind of noticed after the fact, which is annoying. However, it actually makes it easier to access the pockets when I'm wearing it, because there's not a lot of gathering. I'm not having to rummage through the folds of it. So it kind of works, even though it wasn't supposed to. Now, the other thing, right? See, this is why I think I need to sew for myself and then show you guys how I did it. Because as I was sewing this, I rushed, essentially, and I clipped too far in one part of the waistband joining the placket. Sorry, that's my dishwasher just finishing, if you can hear that beeping. And essentially I just clipped too far into the waistband, about I would say 2-3 mils too far, and that's all it takes, unfortunately. And what ended up happening is that I've kind of cut into the waistband, and you can see how it kind of is starting to fray. Regardless of the fact that I fused this waistband, it's still fraying. So what I'm going to have to do is just hand stitch that just to secure it. And it's also at a very high stress point, so fingers crossed on that one. Yeah, so do not rush your clipping. My God, you would have thought I would have noticed that by now. So there's that. Then the placket. One second. I'm just reading a text from my manager because I am working today. So another thing, the placket. So the placket, for those of you who don't know, is kind of like the straight piece of fabric that goes along the front of the skirt. And you'll often find them in shirts. So you find an collared button-up shirt, there's kind of one piece that goes over the other, and then there's buttons all down the front. Anyway, this is where I messed up. This is where I rushed it. So what happened was I fused the placket, but what I didn't realize is that I put the fusing on the right side of the fabric, so that the wrong side, this is technically the wrong side of the fabric. Because I didn't have any more fabric, I was like, I'm gonna have to sew everything with the wrong side facing out now to make it all look the same. So essentially I've sewn my skirt with the wrong side facing out, and you cannot tell from a distance, obviously, but I know. So it's kind of, it's something so minor, and it's not going to bother me because I like this skirt already, so it's not going to bother me. If anything, it adds to its history and its making and its lore, essentially. But that is something I could have easily avoided if I had just taken my time with this. So do as I say, not as I do, essentially. Another thing with this, especially with the placket, and not doing a toile and rushing it and not doing things in the right order is that I edge stitched this this placket front. So what that means is I'll have to hand stitch down all this front of the all the inside of the placket, because I don't want to do another line of stitching, because then that looks messy. But if I had just slowed down, I would have been able to maybe base. I could have easily done this so much quicker. But then again, I kind of like hand stitching, and it's something I'm like 20 years on, still learning, like all of that good stuff. But yeah, but like there are things that have turned out so beautifully on this skirt. Like the gathering is gorgeous. The hem is so nice and thick and deep. I love that. You know, like it's one of those skirts that has a story behind it. Clearly, I've been talking for 21 minutes about it, but you know, I've taken time to like clip all my corners, and like I'm gonna fold the hem back. Oh, I'm gonna edge stitch the hem as well. And then that's gonna go back there. And it's just gonna be a beautiful, beautiful skirt. And then I'm gonna make a matching whale with a waist free whale. So I think everyone wins in this story. But yeah, main takeaways are do a toile. Regardless of how good you think it's gonna be, and you kind of just want to rush through it, take your time. Like, I think if I probably will make another one of these skirts because they're so fun, maybe in like a black, like, and then have a black turtleneck. Vision. I have a vision. But now I know exactly how much fabric I need, what to fuse and not to fuse, what to clip and not to clip too far into the waistband, and also, like, I think that'll be just such like a gorgeous pairing, like chartreuse and black, and ooh, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. But I'm just gonna wrap it up there. Next week I will be wearing this skirt. Next week I will be wearing this skirt for you, and it will be gorgeous. So, love you and leave you, and see you next week. Bye.